Okay, so welcome back to the Rough Cuts Garage. Today we're going to be replacing the rad core support bushings underneath the radiator with these rubber bushings I got from First Gen Industries. So right up here you can see there's not really a bushing there underneath that plate, and it rattles a lot. And then it's the same on the other side here, except the bushing is still there. I don't know if you can see it, but you can hear that smashing around. So it's my understanding that these bushings will fall out, get brittle, and that's what causes a bunch of rattling. So I want to replace the bushings so that the radiator is better supported and it stops that rattling from happening, especially when we want to go off-roading with the truck. So the first thing I've done is just popped off the fan shroud here, popped it up, and then just moved it back out of the way. After reading the factory service manual, it turns out there's just dowels up here, and then there's two dowels down at the bottom that lower into the radiator support brackets. So I've already popped off this hose that goes to the coolant overflow. So I'm going to remove these bolts, and then we'll see where we are at with the radiator. Okay, radiator is now drained. Now I'm going to disconnect the upper and lower rad hose and then lift the rad out of the engine. So here's the rad here, and you can see there's the other little bushing there. So that goes on this side right there. So I'll take the shop vac to this. It actually looks like it's in pretty good shape all around, so that's good. Okay, so I got one bushing out underneath, and there's two washers that you can see. And what I just did was I took my crowbar and I went down on the section of the frame, lifted it up, and then slid it out. Okay, so I'm just gonna bash up on that bolt there and try and get that out, and then we'll see how we can get in underneath to slide the other bushings. But what I'm trying to do is get this dowel or the spacer that's in the middle here out, so I can slide the bushing out the same way I did on the right hand side. There we go. That's what was holding it in. It was worn away so much that it was just stuck underneath there. So what I'm gonna do is shove my crowbar underneath here, lift up, and then try and get these bushings out without pinching my fingers. There we go. Okay, so I'll give you a little update. So I managed to get the bushings out with the washers. You can see these spacers here get like super worn out on the corners, and so that's why I had such a hard time of getting the other one out, is because it actually had, you know, sawed or ground through the bushing and it was hooking on the edge. I have these spacers. They're actually from my Bilstein shocks that I didn't end up using because you don't need them when you're installing them on these vehicles. They are pretty much the same size, so I'm going to use those. I picked up some new bolts because what I'm going to do is, seems like one bushing assembly, and these bolts are pretty toast, you can see here. So I'm going to replace that with these other two bushings. I think I have bigger grade 8 washers that I'm going to put on the outside of these guys, and then that will run the bolt down through to replace these bushings. Another thing I learned is you can see this plate here was supposed to be welded to the other side of the rad core support, which is why it was jiggling around. I don't have a welder. I think what I'm just going to do is put it back, and when we cinch down the bolts, it should hold it still in place. So one thing to make sure, one of the holes for the washer is larger than the other one. So this one goes on the bottom, then your bushing, and then the larger hole so that your spacer can fit through. So here's an update. That method worked. I've got the bushing and the two washers in, and then I can take the spacer and line it up down in between the hole there. Okay, so now we're going to take our corner piece, and even though it's supposed to be welded, it's not going to be welded, so we'll slide that there just like so. And now we grab our bolt washer bushing and slide it on top of the spacer, just like that. So you can see now, right there is the new bushing underneath the rad core support, and then the other new bushing on top. So right here, the bolts are protruding. So I'm gonna go washer, then a lock washer, and then the nut that goes on the end of the bolt. So we got the new bushings and bolt in there. So now it's time to put the rad back in. Alright, so that sums up the install of the rad core support bushings on a 1st gen Cummins. Hope this video helps you, and we hope to see you next time. Cheers.